these agentic systems have enabled is for the salesperson to very much move back to focusing on what they're good at, which is building human relationships, closing, spending time face to face, and doing the human part of sales. The human value is still very much in the phone, as you rightly kind of found out yourself the other day. The way that we kind of set out to build this is a very simple, easy to use platform. It has everything from prospect data to mailbox infrastructure to LinkedIn to the phone itself. People have become very accustomed to the old school ways of personalization, hi, first name, not real personalization. The goalposts have also been moved. Microsoft and Google have made it incredibly difficult to land in inboxes when sending emails at scale. Salespeople are becoming more full cycle because they can now do the outbound part by putting a lot of this on autopilot with the right tools. I sort of started my career as an SDR, doing outbound, sort of was in that space, mainly in the sort of outbound sales and closing space for about 7 years at various different technology businesses, running outbound teams, running sales teams between London and New York. And one of the things that I kind of realized was that there was this opportunity to start a business that was able to use agentic systems and LLMs in particular to run outbound at scale. One of the things that I always used to insist on my teams doing when I ran outbound sales teams was that they used personalized messaging, that they didn't just put everyone into sequences with templates and just run things at scale. I'd prefer that they sent 20 very personalized, handwritten messages a day rather than put 200, 300 people into a sort of standardized sequence. The difficulty back in the day was that was very difficult to replicate at any meaningful scale without adding headcount. With the advent of LLMs, that kind of changed. So my co-founder and I, my co-founder is a machine learning engineer, we spun up a system that was able to use LLMs to write personalized emails that you would then copy and paste into Gmail or Outlook and send to your prospects. That was the first version of Perlon AI. We built that back in 2023 for a private jet broker based in London who was doing outreach to ultra high net worths. Once we sort of signed our first customer, we thought, okay, maybe there's an interesting product here. So we took that same product out to a number of different, firstly, private aviation businesses, and then started to really focus on building it out to serve other companies. And that's kind of, I guess, how it started with what has become our product today. And I think certainly with outbound, it's gone through kind of, what is now kind of 4 different eras. The first one was kind of door-to-door sales, telemarketing, very much sort of field and phone based. Then we kind of moved into, I guess, what we've kind of internally called the CRM era, where it was mainly kind of email, CRMs, activity trackers. Then into, I suppose, what you call kind of early automation. So this is when you'd be able to send sequencing, you'd be able to do dynamic variables, so like first name, company name, but keeping the messaging same or using snippets. And now we've moved into this sort of agentic era where it's AI agents that are coordinating everything from the research to the writing to the follow-ups and running it all on behalf of sales teams. So we've definitely kind of seen the maturity, the market mature in many ways into what it is now, which is very much this kind of agentic workflow system. In terms of the actual sort of, I suppose, problems that we've seen as well, you kind of had a lot of buyer fatigue setting in. People have become very accustomed to the old school ways of personalization, hi, first name, not real personalization. The goalposts have also been moved. Microsoft and Google have made it incredibly difficult to land in inboxes when sending emails at scale. And that has made the whole system a lot more difficult to run effectively. In 6, 7 years ago, you'd be able to send 1,000 emails from one mailbox in a single day, and you'd get a 40%, 50% open rate and a 5% reply rate. Those days are long gone. And big tech, along with LinkedIn, has made it a lot harder to automate effectively within their frameworks. Microsoft and Google, they don't like soliciting, they don't like spamming, what they call outbound spamming. So they've made it harder, which means the systems behind what we do have had to change considerably. And it's made having success in this space a lot more difficult. And it's spawned a whole industry of GTM engineers. This is people who spend their time configuring these disparate sales systems that are semi-technical in the way that you need to operate them and think about how they're best used. Products like Clay. I don't know if anyone on the call's ever used something like Clay, but it's a very difficult product to get to grips with and to use effectively. And this is where this whole GTM engineer concept has come from, out of sales ops. And I think this technical component has also meant that a lot of sales teams are just reverting back to doing what they were doing in the past, which is obviously a lot less effective now that these structures and systems have changed. But yeah, as a result of that, I guess you've seen this emergence of a new age of outbound, which is again this kind of agentic way of working. So in the past, a salesperson's job used to be about ICP research, contact scraping, using multiple channels, following up, hyper-personalized messaging, all of these components to the outbound flow that often the salesperson hated and took a lot of time. What these agentic systems have enabled is for the salesperson to very much move back to focusing on what they're good at, which is building human relationships, closing, spending time face to face, and doing the human part of sales, and not the manual kind of boring outbound part. And I think, yeah, with that sort of renewed focus, you've got as a sales.
Yeah. Finjan, Gaurav had his hand up.
Yeah. Do you want to? Thanks, Ollie, for spotting that. Look, spot on and really very timely in terms of the topic, because I was with Ken yesterday for a coffee. We were talking about LinkedIn automations and the new feature, which is the AI slot button. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
So if you tick the three little dots at the top now on LinkedIn, you can actually report something for being AI slot. Now, what's happening is LinkedIn's trying to protect its domain here. And last week I was doing outbound calling in Silicon Valley, right? From 9 p.m. to 11:30 p.m. on a Friday. My wife, yes, it's probably wanting to divorce me, but it literally was phoning up people, which was the pattern interrupt. So that's what I love about the platform. I've had a quick look. What I was going to say is, you mentioned Clay, you mentioned a couple of others. All of these are investments, right? They're multitude investments because we've got a tech stack running, which is 5 or 6 things. Does your tool have all of those things in one place at one cost, or is it then additional costs of having Clay, having Lemons?
No. So what we kind of set out to do was to build everything in one place that you need to run outbound, because we saw the problem for most salespeople who are non-technical being, connecting all of these disparate tools and having to figure them all out and spending hours in them. So everything from a dialer, and we don't believe in AI cold calls, by the way. Ours is a human dialer in our platform. Again, a lot of the sales teams we work with, if they're an SDR team, if you're an SDR and you're not spending 90% of your time cold calling, I don't know what you're doing these days, because we can do the rest with automation, with hyper personalized custom models, doing email, doing LinkedIn. The human value is still very much in the phone, as you rightly kind of found out yourself the other day. So the way that we kind of set out to build this is a very simple, easy to use platform that has everything from prospect data to mailbox infrastructure to LinkedIn to the phone itself. So you don't really need anything else, essentially, is how we kind of thought about it. So yeah, I guess, as I say, like with this sort of renewed focus, hopefully comes the ability for sales teams to be more efficient. The same output with fewer people, spending time on the phones, having those face-to-face meetings. And I think what that shift has meant for sales teams, and again, there's one particular business that we work with, which is a PE-owned B2B software company. Their old sales team in 2024 had 5 SDRs and 10 AEs. They had a 5 million ARR quota. Their sort of total wage bill was about 1.75 million if you sort of add up all of the AEs, SDRs, and their bonuses. And what they've switched to is a agentic supported sales team. not all of the businesses that we work with, we're coming in and ripping out an SDR function. That's never really the objective. But they've switched their model so that instead of 5 SDRs and 10 AEs, they now have 1 SDR, 10 AEs. They have exactly the same quota, and they absolutely spec out all of their sales team with outbound agents, which across the business costs sub 20,000 for the entire team. And it's managed to reduce, their wage bill by, over 350,000 sort of annually because of that. Again, it's not always the case that it looks exactly like that. Some teams want to just support their SDRs to do more on the phones and keep the team. But you are starting to see this shift play out a little bit more. And it's also sort of started to play out in hiring as well. Unfortunately, I don't have the screen share to show you, but I've got a graph where you can see essentially what is called a role growth index. So it tracks the number of roles available for SDRs and AEs. And there's a huge sort of delta that's emerged for SDRs because of this. Salespeople are becoming more full cycle because they can now do the outbound part by putting a lot of this on autopilot with the right tools. There's a case study. I don't know if any of you have listened to the SaaStr podcast. There's a SaaStr event Jason Lemkin hosts in London and San Francisco twice a year. He has a 5-person team. He's got a chief AI officer. He's got 2 salespeople, and they've got sort of 2 execs. It's a 10 million revenue run rate events business, and he runs it on an entire army of AI agents. That's a qualification agent, customer success agent, sales agents, outbound agents. They have a VP of marketing agent. He's probably the biggest poster boy for how to use AI across a function and really keep a team lean. And this is, I think, something that people are starting to cotton on to, is that it is possible.
Buddy, sorry to interrupt you. You can share your screen now. Gary's just mentioned.
Yeah. So yeah, essentially this is sort of SaaStr. And yeah, it's a 10 million revenue business, as I said. The hiring sort of delta, I'll just sort of show you what that looks like with the AEs and SDRs. And this is up until 2000. The only data is up until 2024. So we'd already started to see this shift in 2024. I don't know what it looks like now. There's no any up to date data on it, but I'm thinking it will be even bigger. I think wanted to also talk about some of the principles for building an AI agent, because again, it's not always sort of straightforward how to think about this. It's a relatively new practice for many. You want to start with a narrow job, so that's one agent, one outcome. Whether that's going to be your sort of first touch engagement. You want to very much keep a human in the loop at the start. That's to check messaging, check the content, make sure that it aligns with brand. And have that confidence in what it's actually doing. And then as well, it's always about what you put into any model or any custom model version that we sort of, or that anyone would spin up. So it's about feeding it your best practices, your best emails, your value prop. If you don't understand your own value prop, you don't know who your ICP is, don't go to an agent. You need to figure that shit out first on your own before you bring it to any kind of agentic system. Because if you don't, the agent isn't going to figure that out. We sometimes work with very early, or we have in the past, sometimes work with very early stage startups who don't have any customers, and they come to us and think that, an agent's going to be, the thing that fixes their business. But it's not like that. You really need to do the work first before you instruct anything like this. And it's always about treating outbound like an experiment, like a product rather, with experiments, metrics, iterations on what you're doing. It doesn't always work from the off. It doesn't always start well for businesses. Sometimes they need time to refine all of this stuff. I'll give you an example. We worked with a videography business who do kind of enterprise storytelling. They took about 5 or 6 months to close their first deal using the platform. Their deals are big. They're sort of not really doing much for less than about $500,000. The first deal they closed was with Google DeepMind that came from the platform, but it was after a lot of iteration, a lot of tweaking on the messaging, and it was a £500,000 deal. So the platform very much paid for itself, but it took time because they hadn't done outbound before. There was a lot of tweaking, a lot of refinement that needed to be done. So you've got to have patience when you're building anything in this space and hoping that it's going to work. Sorry, my... One second, my screen stopped working. Can you still see that?
No, I think you've got to share again.
Okay.
There, we can see it now.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'm just gonna go back to this view because it's easier. But yeah, as I say, it's almost like treating it like a junior employee, right? It needs training, attention, tweaking before it can show that ROI. And I think this is where, a lot of companies still they need to be prepared to go through that in order to see success. So yeah, I think a couple of sort of slides on what the future looks like as well. As we know, sales is a human game. It does not get fully automated away. It's never going to happen. Salespeople, good salespeople are always going to be valuable. Augmentation, I think, is very much the name of the game. It's giving these salespeople the efficiency gains that AI can now do. The way that we also see it is the medium for outbound, or the mediums rather, they're not changing. There are a few things that are not going away. Email's going nowhere, LinkedIn's going nowhere, the phone is going nowhere, and neither are physical events. We can really kind of look to automate where we can across email, LinkedIn, but there are a few parts of that sort of outbound medium that are just, that are very physical, and we'll never try and automate that. So yeah, I think it's just sort of really focusing on, on building those out and making sure that you've got something across all of them. But yeah, in terms of like key takeaways from this, I think first thing is AI has very much been seen as this sort of corporate Ozempic. It's being able to slim down operations with efficiency gains that can be built in from using agents. From a sales perspective, I think it's about 50% of your tasks can really be optimized with AI, particularly around the prospecting side of things. Even with call note taking, next action points, really kind of building on everything that AI can do now. If you're a salesperson who's not using AI, you need to be soon because it is really quite transformational. And the adoption in sales generally has been pretty high so far relative to certain teams. But yeah, the outbound teams are definitely already seeing the benefits. As I said, adoption levels are pretty high across the board. And I think fundamentally the thing that everyone always needs to remember is that sales is still very much a people's game, and it's about relationships. And I don't think that ever is really going to change as much as we can automate a lot of this stuff now. But yeah, thanks. That's kind of everything from me. If anyone wants to sort of discuss any of this in more detail, happy to offer some free advice, talk you through some of the tools on the market, show you how the platform that we've built works. And yeah, just drop me a message at any time. I'd be happy to chat about that.
Gaurav, would you like an introduction to Syngent?
Absolutely, yeah. Because I'll give you a bit of a background as to where we're at in two occasions, if that's okay, because I just want to understand it. One is that there are lots of these sort of tools which are point solutions. So you've got Gong, you've got others, which, pricing will just take it out of equation for a lot of people. So I'd like to understand the pricing model. The second part is specifically in terms of where you've seen which industries this works really well in, because certain things, we were told like HR software, maybe not, outstanding tech. Yeah, the ICP dial-in is super important. And we have it in one product, which is, we're coming out of stealth because we had 6 demos in 2 days and we kind of know like that one's going to fly, whereas the other one might be a slower burn. So is there a way of automating purchase into conversion? So what I'm thinking is on the lower ticket, can you get something which is, I don't know, $50 a month, let's just say for argument's sake, where the sales rep just has no interaction because it's too low ticket for us to want to get involved, but people still want to have access to the tool. Think gamma into the different levels of business and etc. Sorry guys, taking up the oxygen.
Yeah, it's interesting. We generally work with teams that are doing more sort of sales-led, high-ticket outreach for sort of enterprise products. However, there are some examples of companies who've used cold email for sort of freemium type products. So Fixer AI did a lot of cold email to get their initial signups. So it can work. It's not something that we do a lot of, to be honest. But provided you've got a link to the product, to the sign up in the email, and that the problem, I guess, that you sometimes have is that having links isn't great for deliverability. The way that we kind of typically build out campaigns is that there'll be a call to action or a question that prompts a response, and that's an engagement with the salesperson and the prospect then on. So rather than kind of like, here's a link, hope you sign up type of thing. But it can work. I think scale would be the important thing. Knowing who you're targeting would be another one. Articulating exactly what the product is nicely within the message and within the email, so that sort of click is really sort of intriguing for that person at the other end, might be interesting. Particularly if it's got a sort of freemium component to it, perhaps. But yeah, it's I suppose it's not the typical way we run these outbound systems. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk offline, buddy, because we're working with Relay 2, we're working with Salesforce, Accenture. So like we've got some solid clients on that base,
Nice.
but the smaller clients are the sharper decision makers. So we need a shorter sales cycle for some of
Got
those.
it.
That's the only reason.
Okay, cool. Makes sense.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Any additional questions for St. John whilst he's with us this morning?
Yeah, no, a couple of things from me. We're looking at basically outbound sales, but so what I do for it is we're a travel company and we sell holidays, but the most growth area of our business at the moment is currently business retreats and corporate retreats.
Nice.
So what we want to do is able to speak to people that put on corporate retreats, whether it be in a networking group such as Startup, Standup, or maybe it be an office that wants to send their senior leadership team away, or their best performing managers of the year, or whatever it may be. So that's where we want to approach. So probably the people that we need to be speaking to is PAs and HR managers and people like that kind of make
people
decisions.
teams.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
we work with a couple of companies in that space. One that specifically does sort of nature retreats for big tech mainly is kind of their target market. And then another one that's it's called the Good Travel Co, which does sort of like business travel and things like that. And I think with those kind of with the company that does the nature retreats, it's people teams, senior people teams that they're sort of usually going after, and then quite often direct to C-suite if it's a smaller, like 10 to 50 person business with the right kind of messaging. So yeah, we've generally found that campaigns that run to HR teams are actually quite successful relative to running campaigns to engineering teams, for example, which are really tricky to crack. So it kind of depends. But once you've got that good idea of who you've sold to historically, it's just easy to find them and then retarget.
Yeah, well, definitely would like to have a chat. Again, it all comes down to budget and pricing, and because obviously we've only got a certain amount of budget, so it depends on how expensive you are, obviously. But and what the ROI and stuff is. But very happy. If you'd like to do an introduction, Ollie, that'd be really good. And definitely like to have a chat. And
I'll do that.
Cool.
Any offers for startup to stand up members that we can share throughout our channels, and we can put something on our own platform?
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely do an offer of some kind in terms of discounted pricing. Yeah, happy to do that. I'll just have to have a little think about what that would look like. But more than happy to do that.
Get that over to me by email, please, St. It's been wonderful this morning. Very, very important area. Something that comes up time after time after time. I need more clients. I need to improve my conversion. I need an effective lead generation function. All of these sort of things. So that's why it was important, I felt, to get you in, St. John. So that was excellent. You're going to get a lot of love, big ups, and the rest of it on LinkedIn, your aforementioned LinkedIn, and get ready for that.
Thanks, Ollie.
Been fabulous, and get something over to us. Offers for our members, and we'll be over the moon to share that with them. And
absolutely. No,
we'll make more introductions as well. All right.
Will do. No, that sounds good. And for anyone that does want to see a demo, what we do ahead of a demo is we spin up a custom model version for you, so you can see exactly how this would look for your business. And then we can kind of tweak that model on the call. And there's a bunch of stuff there that shows you how it would all look in your specific use case. So it'd be great to show you guys.
Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, good to see you.
Have a
Bye.
great
Great
weekend,
weekend,
all.
everyone. Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.
Enjoy your weekend.
Cheers.